Welcome to New York City, a vibrant home to the arts, culture, and so much more. There's a reason that when you talk about theater, you talk about where I am standing right now, Broadway. This street is filled with stories, and the one I want to share with you today has all of the classic elements of a Broadway show. A rags to riches tale with an incredible cast of characters, dramatic highs and lows, and it's even a story loaded with singing and dancing. It's the story of Roundabout Theatre Company. I'm honored to be part of this family of artists, and this year we are proud to be celebrating our 50th anniversary.
If you love the theater or you're a casual theater goer, you should put your money on the Roundabout.
What a compelling place to work in.
There's something for everybody at the Roundabout.
It's irresistible.
It's an ever-present thing.
It's quite a rare institution.
Plays, musicals, new pieces. There's no rules for the Roundabout.
They've become my New York theater family.
Roundabout is a not-for-profit theater company that today operates 5 theaters on and off Broadway. And across these spaces, they host over 1 million audience members each year. They produce a huge variety of work, from classic plays to joyous musicals to new works from some of the brightest and up-and-coming voices in American theater. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Roundabout may be a well-established theater today, but in the early days, it would have been hard to imagine that this kind of success might be possible. So, allow me to take you back to those humble beginnings, 50 years ago, way back to 1965. America was involved in an unpopular foreign war. Martin Luther King led historic civil rights marches through Selma, Alabama, and Beatlemania was in full swing. And for Roundabout Theatre Company, it began in, of all places, a supermarket basement.
I heard about this theater because the guy who was directing it lived in my hometown. He described it as this fabulous place, and they produced classical plays. I got there, and it was below a supermarket in Chelsea.
Roundabout was about the only place that really did great productions of classics back in the late 60s. And you walked down a flight of stairs, and you walked into this, as they say, fairly dingy little space. Everything was black.
He called it a theater. I mean, it was almost like a dungeon, really.
It was notoriously hot. The bags of ice were supposedly brought in and fans put in front of them.
There were definitely times when you were listening to the play and you'd hear somebody rolling across the supermarket floor.
You could hear people going, "Price check on aisle 6."
And that's really was the beginning.
A very strange start to a very good story.
For 18 years, Gene Feist kept the Roundabout stage busy, producing classic plays to a loyal audience of subscribers. But while everything on stage was humming along, backstage, things weren't nearly as settled.
I got a call from Michael Fried, who was the executive director. He's telling me that they're having trouble getting through the summer. They need to borrow some money from some of their members, and would I be willing to lend them some money?
To put a classic play on requires real investment. Think of the costuming, the actors, the scenery, the multiple sets. This is not easy to do. And I think trying to bite this off in the beginning, putting on these kinds of productions, was a big challenge.
The theater's increasing overhead was becoming harder and harder to manage, and total bankruptcy was soon imminent. By 1983, it became clear that something needed to change if Roundabout was going to survive. The company needed the guidance of a new voice, someone with a love of theater and a knack for business. Someone who could stabilize and then hopefully grow the company. When all seemed lost, a crucially important new character entered from the wings, in the unlikely form of a fresh-faced, 26-year-old college graduate.
I got a call saying, "We found your resume and would you be interested in coming to work here?"
I spent most of the time explaining to Todd how the theater was broke, and I said, you've got some experience working with the theater, but you've never seen anything like this.
I spoke to some people in the industry and they all said, "Don't do it."
And he said, "Well, my wife's a resident, she's making a little money, we're young, I can afford to take a risk, if you guys want me."
In retrospect, it was absolutely insane that I took it. The theater literally couldn't meet the payroll the second week I was there. And of course, we had the Chapter 11 looming over us.
We didn't have the money to send out the subscription mailer. And I don't know if Todd would ever tell you this. He put it on his personal credit card. He didn't say anything to anybody. I didn't find this out for months.
If it wasn't for Todd and Todd's vision of what we wanted to start as and what we wanted to become and his determination, there wouldn't be a Roundabout.
Every regional theater, every institutional theater in New York is defined by its leader. And the reason Roundabout has lasted as long as it has and as well as it has is Todd Haimes.
About 6 weeks into my tenure, they called an emergency board meeting. The board discussed the whole situation and decided to close the theater.
We all had this meeting, we all went home very teary-eyed and unhappy. And the next morning, I was at my mother's house. So I'm explaining to her, what's going on with the theater, because she was the theater person in the family. She's the one who taught all the rest of us to love the theater. And she said, "How much do you need?" And I said, "I think we need about $125,000. And she said, "Oh, I just got a check for $125,000. Why don't you use that?" And I almost fell over.
And that allowed us to produce the next show and keep running.
Todd was able to put together a team of people to run the place properly, and his evolving interest and capacity to deal with the artistic side is what let it grow over the next 8 or 9 years.
In 1991, Roundabout Theatre Company made the move to Broadway. That might sound glamorous today, but looking back to what Times Square was like back then, it's suddenly clear that this was a huge risk. Crime in New York City had just hit an all-time high, and tourists and suburbanites were staying away from Times Square. If they did decide to visit, they would have been faced with dozens of what I'll gently call adult entertainment options.
Well, I searched the city to find another theater, and the theater that I found happened to be the Criterion Center on Broadway.
And many of the board members just felt nobody's going to go to Times Square. It was dirty. It was crime-ridden. You went into Times Square to see a show and then you hightailed it out of there. Could we make it work? Would audiences go?
Moving to Broadway would be a smart thing to do because it would give us more visibility and make us eligible for Tony Awards and give us everything that being on Broadway as opposed to off-Broadway gives you.
But now, in hindsight, it transformed the company. Completely. When I think about that first season, every single show was nominated for a Tony Award, and Todd really put his own stamp on the theater.
The very real reason why this extraordinary little theater is so successful, and has been for, and continues to be, is really Todd Haimes and his clarity of vision.
I was sort of starting to begin to flex my artistic muscles. Natasha Richardson came to see me and said, "I want to do Anna Christie on Broadway." So I said yes immediately. And she said, "Fabulous, and I'd like to do it with this guy I met who's an upcoming actor who I think would be brilliant, whose name is Liam Neeson."
I had got a call from Natasha Richardson to see was I interested in doing a play, and I think I just said yes straight away.
I'm the proper lad for you if it's myself to be saying it.
That production and the reviews became very popular, and it seemed to put Roundabout on a certain amount of popularity and critical success.
At the same time as we were experiencing the success of Anna Christie, it was important that Roundabout get involved with reviving what I felt was the major American indigenous theatrical art form, which is musical theater.
Come with me, Lona. I've missed you so much.
My very first experience at Roundabout was directing the musical She Loves Me. It was my first Broadway show. It was Roundabout's first production of a musical. So Roundabout, they didn't know what the hell they were doing.
I thought the way you produce a musical is you take a play and you add musicians and you got a musical. Turns out it's about 3 times as expensive to produce a musical as it is a play. Scott did a brilliant job. She Loves Me got rave reviews.
After that, then things kind of took off, and it became easier to raise money, to get more subscribers. Todd was producing some great plays, and that whole combination culminated sort of in Cabaret.
Our production of Cabaret sort of fitted the bill of what Roundabout does and should do. It's a revival house, and this was a great American musical, and this was a very different reinvention of that musical.
It's that kind of show. The show's so dense and so rich, and we were creating a world, in addition to the actual piece on stage, the world of the club.
And so somehow cabaret permeated the culture of America in a way that is so much more than just a normal kind of Broadway show does.
I stood there at the first preview and I thought, this is absolute perfection. It just doesn't get any better than that.
As Roundabout thrived, many artists found themselves returning to its stages again and again. With Todd's steady presence at the helm, an enthusiastic and loyal audience, and the chance to do great work, it was easy to see why. An actor could grow from ingenue to leading lady, play in a restoration comedy, and then follow it with a contemporary drama. Or, in my case, take the stage as an MC and then transform into an assassin. It was a theater where so many of today's biggest talents got their start, and a place that seasoned artists soon began calling their creative home.
To be on Broadway, you know, it's always a dream for an actor, really. It carries such a sort of legend with it.
The first play I did at the Roundabout, I believe, was The Foreigner. I just remembered it as very enjoyable. I liked the theater I was at, good audiences, and an audience that comes even if the show doesn't work, so that's always good.
My first job was Mrs. Warren's Profession. Yeah, I think it was one of the scariest times of my life. But everyone was very generous, and I got a lot of letters from the cast. It's a Broadway debut. It felt like you're initiated into a family of sorts.
And we were all so nervous, and we were peeking through, like we were in our first production ever, like little adolescents, like seeing who was out in the crowd and just like holding each other saying, oh my God, this is it.
I remember once Whoopi Goldberg came to see the show, and she came backstage, and I remember Whoopi Goldberg banging on the door of the shower saying, come on, I think you're great, I want to meet you. And I was inside going, I don't want to meet Whoopi Goldberg.
When I moved to New York, never dreaming that I would even get a call back, I got a call back and ended up being cast. And that was actually a Broadway debut. That was the beginning of a long relationship with myself in the Roundabout.
To go and do a play, I want it to count creatively. That seems to be more likely when I go to work for Todd.
The night of the first preview of 9, I had a very specialized aerial number in that show. Todd comes to my room and he said, you know, Jane, I really don't think we're going to be able to get it all rigged up before the first preview. And my heart had sunk. We had worked so hard on it. Todd did everything in his power. He got the crew to stay. He got everyone to stay. He knew how important it was to me and to the production, and he made it happen, and I'm always thankful for that.
I'd just been through a horrible experience. I'd broken my neck and into the woods, and I got to the Roundabout, and they were like, what do you need? What can we do for you? And I was like, wait, you're being nice to me. Is this a trick? And then after my spinal surgery, I came back. I would wait in the wings in my little neck brace. They would take it off and I would go sing my song and then put it back on. But they, sent me baskets upon baskets and called me and checked in on me and just loved me. I'm never gonna forget that.
Roundabout feels like such family to me because they were there for me at such a terrible time in my life. My father was killed in a plane crash a couple of days before we were supposed to basically open the show. The Roundabout and some of their patrons helped find a way to shut down the show for a few days for me to get out to California for his funeral, and they sort of just cleared a space for me to mourn and yet still be able to do my work.
We did Major Barbara at the American Airlines Theater. The end of that run was 9/11. It happened on a Tuesday, and we had another week to go.
I don't think any of us thought anybody would show up. Any audience members would actually show up to go to the theater that night.
People filed into that theater just needing a moment of relief.
I guess the moment for me was standing in the lobby as people came out, and people actually sang and speaking to each other. Wow, it was nice to laugh.
I understood that people needed to come and sit together in a space, have this communal spirit.
Shows eventually still went on, and Roundabout was very, very much to the fore there, of saying, hey guys, it's okay, come on back, let's lead our lives.
Everybody comes back. Everybody wants to be a part of this Roundabout family.
I met my husband doing a Roundabout show, so you never know what can happen.
To know that you have a company that backs you, that loves you, that cares, that is the key.
As Roundabout grew from strength to strength, the company began to realize that the work of a not-for-profit theater shouldn't end with the staging of the productions themselves. It became crucially important to its leaders to make the work accessible to the whole community, both through low-priced tickets and also by helping a new generation fall in love with the theater. And so began the Education at Roundabout program. The mission was to bring theater into the classrooms, combining the principles of the arts with every subject in a child's curriculum. The results have been absolutely amazing for teachers, students, and artists alike.
Because of our partnership with the Roundabout, my classroom is just much more live. Theater skills are life skills. I try to make that clear to my students from the get-go, that if you can communicate, right, if you can be present on stage, if you can be heard on stage, that's a skill that you can parlay into any career field.
Not every kid is getting what they need at home. So perhaps they're in rehearsal and they're gaining the confidence they need to go to math where they don't feel as confident.
I trained as a teacher myself for 2 years. Kids enacting in a play, it brings them out of themselves.
All these students are able to have that experience in their formative years at a time when they need something so badly to speak to them, because these kids are the future.
The New Play Initiative has become such an important part of our company, not just because of the exciting work that's coming out of the program, but also because of what it means for the future of theater across the country.
New minds, new ideas, new writers, new talent should always be embraced, and the potential of who they are and what they could be, and that type of relationship is what makes, art and really anything great.
This theater, sort of, renowned for its revivals and productions of classics, was suddenly investing in a new space whose entire mission was going to be devoted to first-time writers like myself, with plays that have names that you've never heard of.
It's rare for companies in New York to kind of really invest and take chances on writers like that.
You need protection when you're new, and you need a sense that you're being protected by a really strong watchdog. And I believe that the Roundabout is that, and that's why it's important.
Happy 50th birthday to the Roundabout.
Human beings are storytellers. We have been for thousands of years. And the theater provides a unique platform for storytelling at its purest and most powerful. So in this digital age, the Roundabout Theatre Company will continue to lead the way and ensure that theater thrives by telling great stories for generations to come.
For thousands and thousands of years, people have liked the simplicity of somebody telling a story right in front of me. There's something about seeing actors in real time. There's nothing else like it.
We are so disconnected nowadays. Like if you are in a bar, you just look around, everyone's like this.
The theater is one of the last places where we still shut off our cell phones, hopefully.
It's rare to get that shared experience of being in the audience, to feel that moment when something is really working on stage, where you feel yourself leaning in, you feel the entire ripple of the audience quieting because something is so viscerally riveting.
Theater provides not only an escape, but a way through. Theater provides the catharsis we need.
Roundabout gets that.
The question is, how does Roundabout continue to thrive in an ever-changing environment?
It's comparatively easy to have the energy and the inspiration and the excitement to get something boom, off the ground, and what is really difficult is to keep it going.
They celebrate new writers, they celebrate the classics, which have to be done, or new generations have to learn.
They do the things that other people won't do.
It can be different, and it can do shows that you would never see elsewhere.
If you can't take chances anywhere in the theater, you're in trouble. I think Roundabout gives us that opportunity.
I was convinced back then, as I'm convinced now, Roundabout is the closest thing to a national theater that we have in this country. It's just a remarkable story.
In that supermarket basement way back in 1965, those first members could not have imagined that their company would one day become the largest not-for-profit theater in America. But thanks to truly visionary leadership, some gutsy gambles, and a loyal family of artists and audiences, Roundabout has become a treasured part of our culture, creating community and moving audiences like only the theater can. With so much already achieved across these first 50 years, who knows what the next 50 might bring?